So hello, everybody. Here is Michael from New Left. And today I have a very precious new guest. Janet, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Michael, and to all your listeners. My name is Jeanette Armstrong. I am currently the Senior Coordinator with UniCare at Uni Global Union. So we are a global union federation representing more than 20 million services workers around the globe. So I'm a long-time unionist and really pleased to be here talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm really happy to talk with you because Uni Europa, Uni Global, that's a behemoth of unionization in the world. So you have many stories to share with us. And well, let's get started in the big picture. So please explain in more details to folks what is really Uni Europa, Uni Global, you know, the whole setup, how it's done, because most Slovaks don't have a clue. And even I would say most Europeans will potentially watch this interview, don't have a clue what actually is unionization and what is under this Uni Global umbrella.
Sure. And I think it's a really valid question because even when I was involved in unions for a long time, it wasn't until later in my union life that I really started to understand what the global union federations like Uni Global are. And so Uni Global is like a peak body or a federation of unions. As I mentioned, we represent unions in the services sector. So unions in the services sector will join Uni Global Union and become affiliates or become members, and therefore all of their members are also members of Uni Global. There's many other global union federations around the world for different industries and sectors, like the ITF, the Transport Federation, the IUF, the Food Workers, and several others. So Uni Global, we have 20 million plus service sector members worldwide, including hundreds and thousands or millions really of health and care workers. And so I work in the health and care department, supporting other health and care trade unions around the world. And what Uni Global does, and what most other global union federations do, it's about first and foremost supporting our members, and we are membership-based and member-led and run organisations like most other good unions. So it depends on the decisions, the democratic decisions of our members. But our core activities and the things that we do are things like representing our members and services workers in global and regional forums like the ILO, the International Labour Organization, the OECD, the United Nations, in the EU, and the G20, where many global labour standards are set. So we have a really important role there. We also support organising within unions, so support unions to better organise, to better campaign, to fight and win around the issues that are important to them and their members. So we help build capacity, we help build international solidarity because we know that we are stronger together. And in this day and age where we see so many multinational companies operating in various countries and various sectors, it's even more important so that we can unite unions across borders and so that workers can have that solidarity and have that collective power, just like the businesses do as multinationals, and exert that influence and that power to win better wages and better conditions for themselves and their colleagues.
Okay. I will also learn something new. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I will probably learn something new as well when we take the whole global setup of unions. So where exactly is Uni Global in that mosaic of all the other unions? You are the biggest union organization on the planet, the second biggest, the third biggest. You know, how is it, the whole universe of unions? How is it set up? I have no idea.
I'm not sure how we're ranked for size, but generally the global union federations are grouped by industry, so or sectors. So as I mentioned, there's a GUF is what we call it, the Global Union Federation. So there's a GUF for food industry workers. We are the GUF for services sector workers. There's a GUF for public sector workers. There's a GUF for the transport workers. So there's a few different union federations based on kind of industry umbrellas.
I know industrial, for example, so that's one of these GUFs, as you call it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
Okay. And another question that popped into my mind is that when you are talking about uni global, obviously global setup, but I would assume not everywhere it's the same stranglehold, not everywhere it's the same footprint. So some countries maybe even, but some continents is where you are really strong, and well, others there is room for improvement. So do you know how it's set up? Are you primarily strong in Europe or South America or whatnot? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, so as well as being divided by our industry bases, so within Uni Global itself, we have different departments for the different subsectors of the services industry. So like I work in the health and care industry, we have post and logistics, we also have a commerce department, we have professionals and managers. So there's many different departments within uni itself. But then we also have, as you mentioned, regional branches as well. So there is Uni APRO, which is Uni Asia Pacific region. We have Uni Europa, which is Uni for Europe. We have Uni Americas, which is both North America and Latin America combined, and we have Uni Africa. So they're the 4 key regions. And there's, I guess, a different footprint depending on the different industries and whatnot. But yes, Uni Europa is very strong. All of our regions are very strong in their different ways, but it also does reflect kind of the global trends around unionisation, I guess, where Asia and Africa in particular are still kind of emerging in terms of their economies and the levels of unionisation, but they're probably the real beacons of hope, because that's where we see a lot of growth and a lot of new energy coming from those regions as they become more and more active and more unionised.
My guess and intuition is that Europe is the strongest, I imagine, unionization on the planet, but that's just my assumption. Or is it South America? They are pretty left-leaning, so I don't know, who's winning. I want to hear it's us. Actually, I don't know. I don't care. Tell me. Maybe we are winning, maybe we are losing, whatever. Lay it on me. What is the truth?
Yeah, I think traditionally in Europe, unionism is pretty strong. In terms of density, I'm not sure how it works out in terms of actual numbers in millions. There definitely are some particular countries in Latin America that are really shining examples and have long-held histories of strong unionisation. But probably generally speaking, you're right, like Europe as a whole, as a group, is a pretty well unionised country. Although statistics would probably show that union density in Europe, and particularly Western Europe, has
everywhere.
been decreasing over time.
It's a disaster, mainly in post-communistic countries. No, it's going. That's why we are doing it, to change the tide and change the whole paradigm and wake people up that unionization is pretty normal. It's like breathing oxygen, for workers. It's an essential part of their, or should be essential part of their daily working lives. It's just some people forget about it, that all the perks that we are experiencing, they didn't fall from the sky, but someone in the past had to fight for them.
Right, right.
And as we see in America, they can quickly disappear, these perks. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think in many Western economies or the like global north, people have become comfortable, right? And as you said, you know, there's a disconnect between where those benefits and those good wages and conditions and high standards of living actually came from. And so, yes, as a movement, we do have work to do to re-educate people and re-engage people in our movement. And I think that over the last few years in particular, probably like COVID and post-COVID, I think things are turning around, and at the moment there's in some way things are dire with the rise of the right and the rise of fascism politically, but day to day I also am seeing and feeling, you know, this increasing turning back to unions and an increasing understanding of the relevance and the importance of unions, particularly in that political context that we're facing. So
I'm also kind of optimistic after Mamdani won in New York and all the other wins that happened. We were pretty spiked, and so I was happy. So I was writing about it. So yeah, it's hopefully, you know, as the tide changed and better times are ahead of us, and people will realize that they were kind of in a weird hibernation, and kind of hope never changed anything. You have to do something about your lives, and praying and hoping as a coping strategy is good, but activity is better. Yeah.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Tell me how you came to Uni Global. What was your path? How you kind of, you know, were you born being a unionist because your family has 17 generations into the past, or unless you are a unionist, you go out of the house or something of the magnitude. Like certain families are destined to be whatever. Yeah. So what was your path?
Right. So definitely not from a family of generational unionists, although my father was a very progressive man. He was involved in the Labor Party in Australia as a member. So I guess I was raised with a bit of an awareness and consciousness around social justice and the importance of activism. I remember he always used to tell me, you know, encourage me that we should always stand up for what we believe in, but if everybody just said there's nothing I as a single person can do, then absolutely nothing can be done. But, you know, imagine if every person who thought that actually did something, and together we're strong and powerful. So I was raised with that consciousness, but I never really knew what a union was. And until I was an adult and working, and I was working as an early childhood educator, or at the time we were known as the childcare sector in Australia, so early childhood education and care, and also working in hospitality. And someone from the union came and spoke at our work one time, but I wasn't there, or I must have been on shift or something. And I remember getting a flyer, an information pamphlet about a union, and then that was it. And then I didn't hear about a union again for years, until I was at another workplace, and a union organizer came to my workplace and explained to me, this is what a union is. We're trying to start collective bargaining here at this workplace, and you know, you should join the union and get involved and participate in the bargaining. And I was like, oh, well, great. That sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
Common sense, yeah.
Right? And so at that time, I was working in a for-profit early childhood service. And in Australia, we were getting paid the minimum wage. You know, I couldn't, my colleagues and I couldn't afford things like, at the time I couldn't afford a car. We certainly couldn't go to the bank to get a bank loan to to buy a house because the bank would say we don't earn enough money. And the guy who owned many of these centres all around Australia was like a multi-millionaire. He would turn up to meetings in a helicopter flown from his mansion on the Gold Coast. And here we are, the workers who are doing the work, right? Educating these children, supporting families, and making him these obscene profits. We're getting paid minimum wage. We didn't have permanent jobs. Like to have a permanent job in Australia was like 38 hours, and we would all just be on 37.5-hour contracts, so that we were just under, so that we wouldn't have the rights associated with
the usual capitalistic exploitation one-on-one. I mean, you experience it firsthand, obviously. Yeah,
right. And so I was like, yeah, this is not fair. We absolutely should be getting paid more for what we do. Not only because he's making these obscene profits, but because our work is really, really important, right? Like we were helping to raise and care for and educate children in one of the most important stages of their life, when so much brain development is happening, and supporting the broader economy in Australia so that parents could engage in the workforce and go to work. And so that was how I got involved in the union, in that collective bargaining. And then we started a national campaign to try and improve the wages and conditions overall.
Okay, I will jump in. So it was pretty quick awakening, sort of, it seems like you were sleeping for like 10 years, totally uninvolved, and then suddenly something clicked, and here you are organizing pan-Austrian, whatever it was. Okay, wow.
Well, I'll tell you what it was, is that somebody asked me to join the union. No one had ever given me the opportunity before. No one had ever asked me to join the union. No one had ever asked me to step up and take on leadership roles. I didn't know how. I didn't know that I could, you know, like I wouldn't have known where to start. And so it is really that simple. I think many people out there still would love to join a union. They're just not given the opportunity yet, and they're not empowered or educated with the knowledge and the support.
I will jump in. An important question for Australia or Tasmania, where you are originally from. Is the history of unions part of the curricula in schools, or that's just a topic that is totally outside of the scope? You know, the names of all the kings and queens and whatnot, but the unions and how it came to be that workers have the rights they have, that's just never mentioned in the school. Or
I do not remember ever hearing about unions in my schooling life in Australia.
Welcome to the real world. I mean, I think what I know, most countries are educated, or most people in developed world sort of, are educated this way, that unionization isn't mentioned at all in the school curricula, even though it's one of the most important movements in mankind's history, which is kind of, well, says you a lot or tells you a lot about capitalism and the way how schools should really function in capitalism, not to teach them the, you know, the stuff that can crumble the illusion that all this is kind of working, you know? Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And so from there, from the first touch with the unions, you got involved, and what happened next?
I became an activist and a delegate, and then I became an organizer, a member of staff with the union after a couple of years. And then before I knew it, I was the secretary of our branch in Tasmania. I served as secretary for 2 terms, and then our union, with another union in Australia, we formed a brand new kind of super union, I guess. And so my role then changed, and I was given the role, assigned the role as the National Director of Farms Campaigning. So working to organise farm workers in Australia. And
all of them, or just a region? Because Australia is almost as big as Europe. So as jobs, responsibilities go, it's a pretty heavy task. Okay, all of it.
This was a national role. This was a national role. So we were working on organising workers all around.
So you were flying in that helicopter. soon enough.
No. I was not flying in any helicopters, but I did have to do a bit of travel, yes, and it was an absolute honour and a privilege. And in that sector in Australia, there's many migrant workers. It's predominantly work done by migrant workers in Australia. And so that was a really new and interesting eye-opener for me, starting to learn more about international solidarity and developing relationships with unions in the countries that many of these workers were coming from, and also working with farm workers, some of whom are probably, the most vulnerable workers in the country.
Talking about the precariat in the industry where you were working, and that kind of made you even more aware that this is not okay, because they kind of make all our foods, and without them we will be starving. So again, very weird.
There's absolutely essential workers, predominantly migrant workers, being severely exploited, and it was just a really important part of the organising, was being able to build the international solidarity. And that's what really raised my awareness about things like the global union federations, and I started to pay more attention to our union's affiliation with Uni Global, and I thought, this, that sort of work sounds really cool and really interesting, and an opportunity came up with Uni Global, and I applied, and so here I am. And it's nice to be back working in the care sector, which is, I guess, where I started my career, and where many members in my former union are from the care sector as well. So it's nice to be back here, but doing that sort of work at a global level.
How is it actually set up, Uni Global? So you have the headquarters in Switzerland, in Genf, as far as I know. Are there multiple subsidiaries, multiple kind of sub-headquarters, or how to call it? Or is it just one headquarter, and from there, the whole globe is kind of organized?
We have our global headquarters here in Switzerland, and then each of the regions have at least one regional office as well. So there's the Uni Europa in Belgium, Uni Africa has an office in the south and an office in the north of the continent. The Uni APRO office is based in Singapore, and then the Uni Americas, there's an office in Uruguay. Okay,
cool. And well, what is your day-to-day job? So to imagine what is actually, who organizing the whole world, kind of, yeah? What does it mean, Can you please explain it a little bit?
Sure. It varies a little bit. So depending on the particular unions, sometimes it might be the regional officers that are working directly with particular affiliate unions, and other times it's us here in the national office working either with the regional staff or directly with unions in various places. So over the past couple of years that I've been with Uni, my personal patch, I guess, or most of my time has been spent working with care unions in Eastern Europe, in South Asia, and in West Africa. But also working to support and build relationships with unions back in kind of Australia and New Zealand, where I come from, and bits and pieces at a global level as well. And then working around research and advocacy and policy in those global institutions that I mentioned, like the ILO and that kind of thing. Day to day, the majority of my time, though, is spent working with those affiliates and the regions to build organising and campaigning skills and capacity and strategy, so that they can effectively organise and fight and win on the ground where they are. So I'll do a lot of that remotely, and then from time to time, I also have the privilege of being able to go to some of those countries and working with those unions directly to deliver training, to do strategic planning together and that sort of thing.
So that's how we met, yeah? So that's
Yeah.
destiny. Okay, and well, from your experiences, what you so far experienced, tell us a little bit, what's really going on, yeah? Because you have the fingers in all the wounds of capitalism, sort of, or imposed wounds of that capitalism is imposing on healthcare workers and industry. And because you are focusing on Africa or parts of Africa and also Asia, I can imagine that what you have seen and what you've experienced isn't only roses and butterflies all the time. So, describe a little bit what's going on on this planet, at least in the patch that you are responsible for.
Yeah. It absolutely isn't all roses and butterflies, but it is inspiring, right? I think what I've seen in my travels and with discussions with other unions is just the reality of the challenges that workers face on a day-to-day basis. So I think there's common issues that are uniting all workers, particularly across the health and care sector, in terms of respect and recognition for the work they do. Like, it doesn't matter, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Asia, Africa, the Americas, like, we consistently hear wages and conditions are not good. Respect and recognition is not there. Violence and harassment in the sector, is an ever increasing problem. And the forces of capitalism and the forces of union busting. But I think the extent of the challenges or the oppression that people are facing varies in different countries. And I think when we in some places where we see the trend in unionisation going down, like across Europe and kind of back home in Australia, although I understand it's recently turned around, and the last couple of years we're seeing the numbers go back up. But there's been a real kind of apathy, I think is the word, where workers are like, there's no point, we can't do anything, it's too hard to organise these group of workers, or it's too hard to fight back against this government. And what I see from going to some of these other places, like working with lady health workers in Pakistan, hearing about stories coming out of Colombia and the Philippines, where people are persecuted and their lives are actually at threat because they are trying to organise a union, that nothing is impossible, and that there's workers out there who are fighting literally for their lives to establish a union. And like in Pakistan, women, lady health workers, as they're referred to, in pretty oppressive conditions and politics and a culture that is not particularly supportive of women's rights, seeing these groups of women A, organise a union, and then B, take to the streets to take action, to go on strike, to fight against the government, and actually be able to win. That's the kind of thing that is inspiring me. And I think, these are the kinds of stories that we were talking about when we met, when some workers are saying, oh, but it's so hard. It's like, I understand that it feels hard.
Everything is relative, yeah.
Right. It's possible. Yeah. Like, look at this, look what's happening here. If there is a will, there's a way, and we can overcome whatever challenges we're facing in terms of organising and building our unions.
From everything you experienced in your career, what would you say? Is it about strong individual who kind of raises to the occasion, or is it like, I don't know what it is, but tell me, how come that somehow has the balls and the audacity to risk their lives for unionization, How do you explain it to yourself? I mean, what are the stories? How come that someone kind of even dares to dream?
Yeah. I think it's when people get to the point where they understand.
Is it like a desperation turned into anger, or what is it? Because I understand on one hand this apathy, but also I understand the courage, but still I'm flabbergasted that someone who's willing to literally sacrifice his or her life and livelihood and health and whatnot for organizing.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I mean, from time to time, you have some of those stellar leaders who are just so charismatic and so committed to the cause, and they stand as a shining light. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they can't do it and without the collective, and without the strength and safety that unionism, that collective power and people doing something together in numbers gives them. And I think that's ultimately what it is, right? Like, yes, people need to feel angry, and then they need to channel that anger into something. But what they need is ultimately to understand the vision, and understand how union power and collective power works. And they have to feel that solidarity and that strength and safety with their comrades and with their colleagues. And when they do that, then they feel powerful and they feel unstoppable, right? And then that's when like something clicks and they go, you know what? Like, yeah, it's not just me, and together we actually are powerful and we can do something about this.
It's a moment of awakening, I imagine. They were sleeping and suddenly they are awake. Experiences, what were the most encouraging and positive, but also the least encouraging and positive things that you encountered? So share with us some stories. Share with us. You don't have to be very specific about countries and places if you don't want to, but just know what's really going on this blue planet called Earth, what you experienced in your day-to-day job, because I imagine that you have experienced a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's a hard question. Well, the first part is easy, I think, in terms of what are the good things. And I think, and for me, in terms of union organizing, even the bad things or the challenges are good things, right? Because we can learn from them, and we can still be inspired by them. I think in terms of what's going on in the world of work and the challenges that workers are facing, or the exploitation that workers are experiencing, it's across the board. I mean, the proof is there in terms of the growing inequality. And I think like this week, Elon Musk is now the world's first trillionaire. Like, this tiny portion, what is it, like 6 white men having whatever percentage of the world's wealth, and the rest of us just trying to share in the crumbs. If that in itself is not inspiration for workers to wake up and start to do something, it's irrefutable evidence, right, that workers across the board are being exploited. A certain group of people are getting richer and richer because of our work, and we're not enjoying the spoils of that. We're feeling that every day. But then there are more specific examples and stories, right? From the millions of health and care workers, like I was when I was working in early childhood, who are, you know, we're getting by, but everyday life is a struggle. And these, you know, workers who are, we're not destitute, but they're having to make decisions week by week, like, you know, is this care worker going to buy herself a new pair of shoes that doesn't have holes in it, or is she going to put food on the table for her kids? You know, is this care worker going to be able to feed her whole family, including herself, or is she going to have to skip a meal again just so that her kids can eat, right? Like, these are care workers with respectable, important, essential jobs, working full time, and they're having to make these sorts of decisions every day. You know, can I put fuel in my car this week to actually get to work? Can I buy fresh fruit and vegetables for my children? These are the sorts of the stories that we are hearing from health and care workers every single day. And then we go, I guess, to the more extreme cases where we hear about migrant care workers being exploited. And this is very similar to my experience with farm workers, where it's akin to modern slavery, right? These migrant workers come in, the boss or the contractor will take their passports, will hold their passports, and then they have all sorts of threats made to them, you know, if you don't do this, or you don't agree to that, or you don't work for this little amount of money, then A, you don't have a passport, B, like, your visa will get cancelled, we'll dob you into the government, this, that, and the other. Many ways to further exploit these types of workers. And in Australia, in the farm worker organising, we regularly came across undocumented migrant workers, right? Workers who had been in Australia for many, many years, doing this essential work of feeding the country, but who, for various reasons, didn't have, or no longer had, a valid visa or a work permit to be working in Australia or to be in Australia. And that left them really, really vulnerable to employers exploiting them and threatening to expose them and being able to take advantage of those vulnerable situations. And we would hear so often that, well, you know, why are you trying to organise these workers? They're migrant workers, they're undocumented, why do you care? And they will never join the union because they're too scared, or because they're too this, or, you know, people are ready to make excuses for these workers. But actually, once we engage with these workers and talk to workers, including undocumented migrant workers, educated them about their rights, educated them about how unionism works and how collective power works, and how we would have strength and safety in numbers, and how they would have the solidarity of the other members of the union. When they were given the choice and given the opportunity, most of these workers would be absolutely, you know, yes, like, how do I join?
I
Sign
mean,
me up.
yeah.
Yeah.
What do I have to lose? I don't have my passport anyway, so, you know, I can only gain, no?
Yeah. And when they understand that they do have a choice and that they can have some power and start to take back control of their own life by joining a union and by having the solidarity of their comrades in a union, that is a really, really special and empowering thing. And it changed so many lives. And I still get goosebumps thinking about it, right? Because it's easy to underestimate the power of union and the power of unionism, but the way it absolutely changes lives in a really profound way is incredibly special. And when workers are given the education and given the choice to take back control of their working life and their life more generally, they will step into it. And I think as unionists, we need to not make excuses for it and not think, oh, they won't care, or you know, they're just too apathetic. Actually, we just need to get out there and try and give people the choice, and usually they'll take it. More often than not, they'll take it.
Cool. Let's change gears a little bit and talk more about post-communistic Europe, because that's one of the areas of your expertise. And let's bring it a little bit more home to where we are, or where I am. Maybe a tricky question, and you will not know the answer, but I have to ask it anyway, because that's in my opinion at least, that's the biggest obstacle to unionization in not only Slovakia, but Czech Republic and multiple other countries as well. It's the setup and it's the structure of the union. It's the systemic setup of the unionization, because what we are struggling with compared with Western European countries is also part of the question I'm about to ask, is that in Western European countries, when you pay your membership fee, everything goes to the head union. So whether it's Verdi in Germany, or IG Metall in Germany, or GPA here in Austria, or wherever. But in post-communistic countries, I'm not an expert, and that's part of the question. Definitely in Slovakia and Czech Republic, only roughly 30%, 30, goes to the kind of mother, and 70% stays on the factory floor, sort of, or wherever the union is active. So it leads to a huge divide in the funds, because, well, when 70% of the funds are staying somewhere where they have nothing to do, basically, so that means that the union, the mother, is extremely underfunded. And I can just give you an example and what's going on in Slovakia. So even though we have only 8.8 percentage points of unionization, even with that miserable numbers compared to the best country on the planet, which is, as far as I know, Iceland, with 92. Yeah, so definitely totally the opposite of us, mirror opposite.
Combined together, you can make 100, right?
yeah, something like that. Let's marry. If only. So with this meager 8.8, it's still 25 million euros roughly. So if the union in Slovakia really had 25 million euros centralized, well, for 25 million euros a year, you can make some shebang and some, well, whatnot, yeah? But because it's so divided, well, not much is going on, and it started at 60% for 30 years ago, roughly 60, and now it's under 10. And the question is, how normal is it? And what are the people saying in Uni Global about this whole weird setup we kind of have in post-communistic countries? A, is it normal? Do you agree with it? And B, is it only Czech Republic and Slovakia, as far as you know, or is this totally pan-post-communistic countries phenomena of, I don't know, 15 countries or 12 countries or whatever it are, that everywhere this setup kind of emerged after the breakup of communism, and, well, the consequences are here alive and kicking, and everywhere it's below 10%, basically.
So I'm just speaking from personal experience here, and I'm not trying to present a particular Uni Global position on this.
This is Janet talking. Yeah, we get it.
I think in the post-communist kind of Eastern Europe, it's not uncommon. I think the percentage varies from country to country. But it seems to be like relatively a pretty common way of doing things. In my based on my experience, I think it could be, and based on just like the core concept around union and the idea of pooling our resources and the idea of economies of scale, like it makes more sense to me that more of that money would be pooled into the mother, as you say it, to help with the broader running of campaigns and to ensure that funds are being utilised, you know, strategically and for organising. Do I think it can change? And, you know, like just because that's the way it is now doesn't mean that's the way it has to be forever.
No, definitely it can't be. I mean, we are just, as race to the bottoms go, we are pretty successful, but maybe this shouldn't be our aspiration to totally destroy ourselves unions wise, because, you know, 60 and less than 10, that's the result of this setup. And not only in Slovakia, but everywhere you look, this is the result.
Yeah, I think there's probably other factors at play as well, though.
No, definitely. Definitely. I'm not discussing that. I'm just saying that in my mind, this is the main reason why it's not working. Because, well, when you don't have the money, when you can't pay people, when you can't organize anything, then, well, you can be as good as it gets. You can be Jesus 2.0, but, you know, when no one knows about you because you can't run any ads, because you don't have the funds or whatever, you can go visit people because you don't spend your own money to go somewhere. I mean, you can do it once or twice a year, but not every week, no? Then, you know, how can it be done?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's kind of probably two options, right? Either unions make this decision to collectively pool more money up into the mother so that people can be employed to do those things, or there's some other sort of transformation where the people in the union branches take greater responsibility for the organising work, which is more realistic, which is more likely to happen. But you're right, like either way, you know, the status quo can't remain because you'll keep
it
on that
can,
current.
but we all see the result of that big fat zero.
Well, exactly. Exactly.
And fascist ante portas. Yeah, that's what's happening. So, yeah. And the question was, is it the case everywhere in post-communistic Europe, as far as you know, or is there any exception to this rule? I mean, what I know is that Slovenia is doing pretty well of a job. They are at 80% of collective bargaining, maybe even above 80%. So obviously they do something differently. Is it this? I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can answer that question either.
Okay.
I don't know exactly the depths of everything that is leading to success in Slovenia. But what I can say is that there's some great examples of unions across Eastern Europe really turning things around and starting to embrace true organising and the concept of you know, more national campaigns and paid organisers, and that delivering results and being successful.
Examples, where was that successful?
I have been working with unions in particular in Hungary and Croatia, a couple of care unions in those countries, where it's really, really exciting to see what they are achieving. I think in Hungary in particular, given the political situation there, it's even more exciting for me to see new union branches being formed regularly, and the way that they are embracing organising and now looking towards being able to self-fund, organisers and I guess start to reorganise the way their union is structured and their unions are run so that they can be more effective and do the sorts of things that we have been talking about. So
sorry to jump in. So they embrace this 100% model from Western Europe, or what are you saying? This is the new normal for them, or
I think they're on a journey, right? They're starting to embrace the journey, and I think you can't just go, okay, like all of a sudden now we're going to not do this in any way at all, and you know, totally restructure our unions to be the way they are in Western Europe.
You just that's my ambition, or that's my daydream, that you just start from a scratch in a green field and you do it properly the way it's supposed to be. So 100%, mother gets all, and you just organize it the way it's organized. That's the question also. Was it the case with this 100% to the mother from the beginning of unionization, or is the Western European model kind of like a outlier, and in Americas it was done differently? I'm not big on unionization history, because in my guts, I guess it was the model from the beginning, that you give to your mother everything, mother is strong, and then mother can organize the companies wherever you are positioned and situated.
I think if you were starting a brand new union, you could set it up however you want, right? But if you're talking about trying to get existing unions to change and to evolve, I think we need to meet people where they're at and bring them on a journey with us. And so it would be pretty hard, pretty difficult to just go, okay, like we're going to blow up everything that you know already.
No, we don't have to blow it up. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying let's start somewhere where it's not occupied. 8.8%, that means like almost nowhere is a union, and let's start to do it properly. That's my kind of opinion, no? Because this old model showed itself not to be working, because if it were only in Slovakia, okay, maybe we are just unlucky. But when it's the case more or less everywhere, then obviously this is a systemic failure, and, you know, continue do the same thing and expect different results is sign of craziness and insanity, as they say. So maybe we should change the approach and realize that what we are doing so far just isn't working. Similar situation with, let's say, green transition. Yeah, we were married to fossil fuels for God knows how long, and now we, in the last decades, realize maybe not the best marriage of convenience in the history of mankind. Hey, let's change the mistresses and go green. Huh? So human beings are able to learn and realize that they made a mistake. That's just, I mean, we should be able to learn and realize that this was a mistake. I mean, maybe I'm naive anyways. So what I wanted to discuss also is the situation in Europe as you see it now, because what is kind of, maybe, I don't know, I will ask the question and tell me what you think. Last week in Vienna, we had a meeting of the left party, so the fraction in European Parliament, the left fraction, so the radical leftists. So we had a meeting here. So I was the only Slovak in that meeting. We were like 120 people from all around Europe, from that bracket of the left parties and whatnot. And I don't know whether you know that there happened a split between the left, and the alliance was created in the European left. I don't know, let's call it Sky or what. Yeah? So the Scandinavian parties left, the Podemos in Spain left, and in France, Mélenchon and France Insoumise left, and they, maybe I forgot someone, they created this alliance. And now the question is, okay, I can't ask for you as a Uni Europa or Uni Global, but what is Janet thinking about this situation? Because this is a huge, huge thing in European unionization as well, because these are your direct allies on the political spectrum, and well, it happens, yeah? are you reflecting on that? Are you talking with people around your offices around that, what it means, what's the future, where to go, what to do, what to think? Because first, when I was there, I mean, when it happened, I was like, what the fuck? How can you split now? The situation is as dire as it ever been. Or maybe, okay, it was worse with Hitler, but by the way, we are not far off, yeah? And you do this. But then what I realized when I was there last weekend is that maybe they just did the only rational thing, and that is when something isn't repaired or repairable, or how to put it, you just have to let it go and start anew, because after I don't know how many tries, you just realize that, well, as life goes, this is not to be repaired, and we have to start anew, because otherwise we all go down. Yeah, but that's just my take. That's the question for you and for Uni Global, if you can talk about it. What's the strategy there? Because this is a huge change in European politics and in leftist circles, and well.
Yeah. Look, it's certainly not a conversation I've been involved in within uni internally. But it's a really interesting time, isn't it? And I think my personal thoughts or reflections are, well, I don't have an answer, but I just have thoughts. And I've been reflecting the last couple of weeks actually on just, I feel like everywhere I turn at the moment, there's so much is contested. There's so much fighting against each other. And I feel like for a long time, for the left, this has been a weakness of ours, that we haven't been able to truly unify and exercise solidarity as a left. And I think comparatively, the right and the far right have actually been really good at that. And even if they
we all see the results, they are good at that. They are miraculously good at that. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes on the left, we can let perfect get in the way of good, you know, and we can be very purist about ideology, as opposed to doing what needs to be done to stop the march of the right. Because I think, you know, and I guess that's the debate, like, does that need to happen first, or do we, you know, I think there's portions of the left that think we need to go so far to the left, there just needs to be a complete revolution. Do I think a complete revolution is realistic? Personally, I'm probably more in the moderate camp. But I think there's definitely a role for a left flank, right? And we need, like, there needs to be, there can be a purpose to the left flank, but the left flank and the more moderate left still need to find a way to communicate and coordinate together in order to succeed.
So my take from the experience when I was there is that, I mean, this is just my, I don't know, but my kind of gut feeling is that, as I said, that after years of trying, they just gave up because they've seen that it's not possible. And what is the problem of the European left is the baggage of the past of communism. And for very peculiar reasons, the left, the party, is kind of married to communists for reasons I don't understand. You know, the head of the party is a communist from Austria, and most of the parties under the left umbrella are communist parties. Maybe not most, but many definitely, like too many for my taste. And that's the problem, because when you have a legacy of everything that communism did in the last century, and you kind of can't, I don't know, cope with the legacy and kind of move forward, and you are still stuck in modus operandi of 19th century and what Marx would say in the 21st century, not against Marx, but, you know, like 21st century, he can't even comprehend what's going on in his book. So, you know, it's kind of useless to use Marx nowadays, you know. And what I've seen there and what I kind of getting from the vibe is that they are too embracing the past, and they are not looking forward enough, because the world isn't 19th century anymore. And as an example, what the leftists are always discussing, maybe that's the case in Uniglobal as well, is the social landscape in Europe and in other countries. I mean, you know, more or less everywhere the oligarchy is ruling the tides, and the oligarchic media and Facebook and YouTube and whatnot, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, are kind of dominating in the media sphere. When it's not social media, then it's some big oligarchic houses, media houses, who are dominating the narrative. So, you know, we can't really exist under that umbrella. I mean, we can exist, but we will not be thriving. We can be just surviving. So we have to create something of our own. That's my opinion. Yeah. And this is kind of similar, I hope, I guess, it was the similar approach what these people or parties from the alliance took, that they realized that just, okay, as a survival strategy, okay-ish, but not as a thriving strategy. And if you're planning to win, then you have to be, well, bold on multiple fronts. And when it's just not possible in this setup, then you use it, you embrace it, and then you move on. Yeah, what is there to do? But that's me. Tell me what you think.
I don't know enough about it, to be honest. I've only been living in Europe for 2 years, so I feel like I can't comment. Yeah.
Okay. So Janet and her plans, what is on the horizon? You know, what are the tasks? What are the projects? What is happening? What the future holds for you? What obviously not 77, so you have your whole life ahead of you. So where should it lead?
Yeah, I mean, ideally not working until 77. But no,
Depends whether it's work on something you love, no? Well, then you can do it till 90. Chomsky is doing interviews with 94, and I don't think that he's, you know, kind of not enjoying it. So
yeah, no, that's very true. Most days I feel like I could do this forever, right? So for me, I want to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm learning so much in this role, and through living in this part of the world for the first time. I want to continue on that journey, and I want to continue on this trajectory that we're on at Unicare, where our unions, our affiliates are growing, Unicare is growing. We are having an impact out there to really empower and support and organise health and care workers to improve their sector and improve their lives in work and outside of work as well. And I want to be able to keep working with, you know, some of the fabulous unions that I've had the honour and the privilege to meet and engage with over the past couple of years since I've started doing this work, to see them become sustainable and to be able to then, you know, move on and help the next emerging union to really embrace organising and become sustainable, so that they, you know, they can effectively represent their workers and their members as well, and help the next person.
Thank you, Janet. Well, all the power to you, hugs and kisses, and all the positive energy from Vienna to Switzerland and continue on this wonderful path of yours, and sky is the limit. You know, I was on the kind of strike, or it was a memorabilia after 50 years of the strike, kinda, of the Icelandic woman. It was the 50th anniversary just 2 weeks ago. So, you know, there is definitely room for improvement. The Icelandic woman showed us how it's done, 90% participation. Did it ever happen in unionization history that a union had a strike with national strike with 90% participation of people who were kind of, you know, touched by that particular struggle? I was like, 90%. That's impressive.
It's incredible, isn't it? And you know, the future is female.
No,
Michal, and I think especially
strong female definitely rule the future. So break a leg, stay healthy, and see you later. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Ciao.